Right now, we'll be delving into the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy to see what the ministry has been doing to position Nigeria as that hub that investors can come into, and to also see how we can boost the economy through arts and culture. And we have in the studio Honorable Minister of the Ministry of Arts, Culture and Creative Economy, Hannatu Musawa. Good morning. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you
Great,
for having me.
great. Now, you have been a strong advocate for for the recognition of the creative economy as a vital sector for national growth. Talk to us about the key steps you've been taking since you assumed office to position that ministry as a global hub for arts and culture.
Again, thank you very much for having me. So from the very beginning, you know, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, even during our campaign, was very intentional in telling Nigerians that he wanted to diversify away from the ordinary, normal means of growth, which is oil. And one of the areas that he identified very, very early on was the creative industry. You would have thought that someone would have thought that there was a lot of worth and value in the creative industry early on, but for the first time in the history of Nigeria, this ministry was created. And there's no better time than now, because you can tell, everybody knows that in the whole world, there's a lot of interest in our content, talent, creativity. Absolutely. When I came on board, what I found was literally ground zero. Nothing had been done to really position, to put the right structure in place, a right foundation. So we started off by doing a sort of deep dive. I looked at the countries in the world that have really been able to leverage on their creativity. Countries such as South Korea that have leveraged on it and completely monetized it and even used it to sort of reposition their narrative in the global community. So we used BCG to do a deep dive of some of these countries, what they have done, and then we brought it to Nigeria, looked at our numbers, looked at our potential, and localized it. So we started putting up a structure. And it was important for me to take time to put up a structure because Mr. President wants us to have something long-term, something that is sustainable. So you look at something like IP. The fact that there was no robust IP policy in place to protect the people within the community and also to encourage investment. So we started with the IP policy. We have completed that project, IP policy. It will be going to the Federal Executive Council, and hopefully, you know, we will deliver IP to the industry. And then also I looked at the issue of funding. One of the main areas that you find that really prohibits people in the industry from growing is the fact that they have no access to funding. So we went about looking for international funding to see how we can support the industry.
That's right.
I'm very happy to announce, I mean, yesterday we did announce it, that we are about to implement $200 million of funding, injecting it directly into the industry. We are partnering with a Frexim Bank that did initially commit $200 million to us for the industry. And we've worked together to put up a framework to ensure that this funding is able to go directly to the industry. And I announced it yesterday and I will announce it again today. We are literally going to implement this $200 funding that would go directly to the industry. And my hope is that it would go to the people who need it across the nation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Right.
I'm going to be very intentional in ensuring that creatives all over the country, rural, urban, have access to this funding. So we have the funding.
Now,
I want to...
Sorry to pause. That makes a whole lot of sense. You know, it's one thing for you to have an idea, and then another thing for you to have all the strategies in place to birth this idea to the benefit of the entire people of Nigeria. But according to recent reports, they indicated that Nigerian government aims to elevate the creative industry's contribution to national GDP to as much as $100 billion by 2030. So I'm wondering what kind of reforms, you've mentioned some, what kind of strategies you're not bringing on board to, you know, not just attract funding, but also contribute to the national GDP growth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was as a result of that deep dive that we did, looking at these benchmark countries, that we were able to project that Nigeria was able to contribute that $100 billion. We committed to this, and I believe that we can do that and more by closing some of these lacunas that I spoke about, for example, IP, which is completely foundational, and the fact that it wasn't there. You know, this is one area that you can do it. Then you also look at the issue of infrastructure.
For better understanding of our audience, what exactly is IP?
IP means intellectual property. I'm sorry. I've been reading so much about IP. Intellectual property, you know. What we're even doing, we're even going beyond that. Now we're monetizing that IP. We have come up with a framework where, as a creative, you can now use your IP as collateral to access funding. And this is, again, something that we're working with Afrexim Bank with an additional commitment that they've given us to ensure that creatives can now use their creativity, and that IP that will be protected from the intellectual property policy to collateralize and use that as collateral for them to get the funding. So that is one lacuna that you're closing. And then the issue, like I said, of the funding is one, because when you talk about the value, but there's no value if creators in the industry have no ability to create. When they create, the communities are able to give value to their communities.
Absolutely.
Some of the value that is being lost, we're also looking at how we can bring that value back home. Some of the policies that we're also talking about, in addition to the intellectual property policy, is also the cultural policy, which has been seated and has been outdated since 2017. So we have brought out that cultural policy because that really is sort of the constitution, so to speak, of the cultural sector. So we have taken the culture. Go ahead, please.
Okay, interesting. Before I bring in my colleagues in Abuja, I just want you to quickly touch on this $200 million international funding that you mentioned earlier. I'm wondering what the framework looks like, a sustainable framework that would even outlive your term in office. And then tell us how you intend to spread this. So what are the sectors within the industry that you're looking at?
Yes, like I said, one of the things that Mr. President said to us very earlier on, and he mandated it, was that everything that we were going to do has to be done in a sustainable manner, has to outlive all of us, right? Not just this current administration, has to outlive for the next generation and the upper generation. And that was why it was important for us to do a proper foundation, lay that in place. One of the ways that you can do that is working with the private sector, which is very key. And we know that in terms of any initiative having a sustainable nature, the way to do it is to work with the private sector. So almost every initiative that we are rolling out is going to be done with the private sector in order to give it that sustainable factor. The framework, we are working now actively with the Afrexim Bank. We already have a framework in place. I don't want to jump the gun by announcing it now. It will be announced next week. How it's going to be spread is we're going to do a proper stakeholder announcement. And the areas of the subsector of the creative industry, it won't be limited to one or two. There are 49 subsectors in the creative industry. And my hope, of course, some will be a little bit more, the music, the music, the film, perhaps the fashion, the animation, but we want to make sure that all 49 subsectors have equal access to,
We have our colleagues in Abuja, Eshomomo Imodu, as well as Tijesu Adeoye, who will be chiming in this conversation to speak with you as well. I'm sure they have some questions they would like to ask. Good morning, Tijesu. Good morning, Eshomomo. You can go ahead with your questions now.
Good morning, Veronica. Good morning, Ibrahim. Good morning, Honorable Ministers. Good to have you this morning.
Yeah, we can hear. Go ahead. You can just speak up a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Brain drain is still a very serious challenge in the creative economy, as there is a perception that the talent we have here go out there to flourish, and this has fueled, the jackpot syndrome and all that we have in recent times. What are the measures the ministry is doing, to stem this tide?
Thank you. I think I got the last part. We're talking about Japa syndrome, right? The brain drain.
Yeah, and how it's affecting our talents, yes.
I think if there's an area where we can stem this Japa syndrome is within the creative industry. It has the ability, it has the interest of the world in order for us to be able to do that. But for you to do that as a government, you have to put an enabling environment that will allow people, when they come in the industry, they know that they have investment, they have funding, they have infrastructure, they have the support of government. And one of the things I didn't mention was we're launching D30 platform. D30 platform is a very revolutionary and very important aspect of how we're building this creative industry. Many of the things that we do as a nation, there's no data mapping, no proper data mapping, right? Whereby people know where the money is, people know where the numbers are, investors can come in, and people within the creative industry can really understand, what the industry is. And also as a nation, we can sort of count and trace what the industry means, the impact that it has. We know that it has a lot of impact, but we don't specifically know how. So D30 platform, again, is a very important platform that will allow people or Nigerians abroad to look at where the numbers are, to look at where the interests are, to look at where the opportunities are, where the investment are. And I think that will be a very important factor in bringing Nigerians back home and keeping them back home. And we've also, the other thing I didn't mention was the issue of infrastructure. At the moment, we do not have infrastructure to support the growth of the industry. The fact that you as a Nigerian want to listen to Afrobeats, and you want to listen to a Nigerian play Afrobeats, and you have to go to Ghana or Rwanda, it is unacceptable. So part of what we're going to do is to set this infrastructure place. We recently got approved at the Federal Executive Council the Creative Economy Development Fund and the Creative Economy and Tourism Infrastructure Corporation. And this is where we hope is a special purpose vehicle, and this is what we hope to use in order to deliver the right infrastructure to the industry. And I think once you do that, you get the funding, you have the infrastructure, you have the data mapping, you close all the lacunas, and then we use the Destination 2030, which is another initiative where we want to leverage on our creativity, on the tourism, on our content, and just everything dynamic about Nigeria to reposition Nigeria in the eye of the world, but also to bring Nigerians back. When you put this back all together, I think it creates, again, that trite term, that enabling environment that is needed to grow the industry. And this is where we start to go up to hit that target.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, Eshamama, go ahead with your question, please.
Okay, Honorable Minister, I was just still looking at this Tourism and Cultural Infrastructure Corporation. Now, talk to us, how are you collaborating with the various state governments also, so that it will not just be a federal government-driven project, because tourism and culture could be a good money spinner for the various sub-governments. So talk to us, what exactly are you doing in this collaboration? You've talked about earlier how you're collaborating with the private sector. Let's talk about the various sub-governments also.
So it's interesting that you say that, because we do have another initiative. You know, a lot of what we put in place, though it's core foundations that I think needs to really boost the creative industry, I did feel that as Nigerians of 240 or 230 million people, that there's a propensity of many Nigerians to feel that we are having a sort of elitist approach. So it was important for us to reach down to the grassroots. And one of the initiatives that we have is the Renewed Hope Cultural and Creative Cities, whereby the federal government already has been approved at the Executive Council, at the National Executive Council. We're taking it to the Federal Executive Council for approval, whereby we will do a handshake with the subnationals. So there's, there's a unique peculiarity in every single state as to what is within their tourism, heritage, culture, and creative environment, right? So we do that handshake with the subnationals. We have ideas of what we want to do at the subnational level. Subnationals now will help us flesh that out. We will be signing an MOU with every single government. So you're taking this opportunity that is coming out from this great, great ministry to the subnational level. And it's the subnationals that are going to really run that project. And again, everything we do, even with the subnationals, is going to be done in collaboration with a PPP. And just very quickly, I just want to mention a very important initiative that will be announced next week. So perhaps it's a good... give us
a peek into it.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to get a peek into the Abuja Creative City and the Wole Soyinka Theatre. Next week, we will be announcing the Abuja Creative City. The Abuja Creative City is a very important project that is going to reposition Nigeria as the creative hub of Africa. It is a one-stop shop for everything across the 49 subsectors. Already, we are collaborating with Mr. Bayo. He's done Madhouse, and he's already started, he's already started the project. So we're doing a handshake with him, a partnership, again, private-public partnership, whereby we are going to create something magical when it comes to the creative industry in Abuja, and hope to use the infrastructure special purpose vehicle to also get funding and also deliver that to finish the Wole Soyinka Theatre as well.
All right, CJ Su, do you have more questions?
Yes, I do. Honorable Minister, the streaming giant Netflix recently announced plans to stop commissioning original content on the Nigerian motion picture industry. But you have immediately dispatched a team to Amsterdam to hold talks with Netflix over the matter. What possible outcome should Nigerians expect from this?
I think it's slightly premature to speak about the outcome because we're still in talks with Netflix. But apart from that, we are also exploring other streaming options for Nigeria. You know, Nigeria has the second largest film industry, and we shouldn't really have to be beholden to anyone. So we should be driving the conversation in terms of streaming when it comes to African content or global content, really, as the second largest film industry. So it's conversation, we're having a number of conversations with streaming platforms and also exploring the option of also running that conversation ourselves. So it's slightly premature to talk about the outcome because we are still in discussions. However, yeah, I want you to really watch the space when it comes to the subject of streaming and Nigerian content.
Great. Eshamamo?
Earlier you talked about the Abuja Creative City, and that is quite exciting. Now, last December, Lagos, there was a lot of money that was made in Lagos through the Dirty December. Now, I'm talking about the next December. What exactly are you planning to put in place so that it will not just be a migration of people out of Abuja and various cities to Lagos? What will be in place in Abuja, for instance, so that inhabitants of Abuja can also experience the economic benefit of Dirty December?
Well, you know, Nigeria is great because of Lagos. I mean, that's just the bottom line. One of the reasons why we are one of the greatest black nation on earth is because of the characteristics of Lagos. I often say when I come to Lagos, it's almost as if I've entered a vortex. and I don't want to come out. And I think coming to Lagos is really an experience. What happened last December, even though we knew that there was a huge pull and leverage into Nigeria, but it was almost an organic move that happened in Lagos. And that was, people continue to talk about Dirty December. So you can imagine if the government was completely intentional in ensuring that, we maximize the opportunity in Lagos in Dirty December. So I can assure you, come this December, I feel sorry for the nations of the world because they probably won't have many citizens left, because everybody is going to want to come to Lagos and to see what we have. So Nigeria has to be prepared and ready to receive the global community that is just so interested in, having this experience about being in Nigeria through Lagos. And perhaps the conversation can be expanded beyond Dirty December. And we're going to actually come out with a yearly calendar from the tourism component of our ministry, whereby the global community should know that there are things to be done in Nigeria the year round. And when you come to Nigeria in December, you should also visit the Calabar Festival, which is another staple that really puts us on that global community. So there's a lot to be done. That calendar will be announced soon. I'm going to be having a stakeholder engagement, a summit with the tourism community, even though we have a framework, but we want the tourism community that have existed within this ecosystem to come and help us flesh it out a lot more. And we'll be announcing that calendar very soon. And hopefully the government will have a lot of intention in building on already what Lagos State has done and what has organically been built by our creatives on their own that really made December great. So I'm hoping this December, people are not going to travel out. Everybody is going to stay in Lagos to experience Dirty December.
All right. Now, earlier on, you mentioned we having the numbers, talking about our population, and 7% of that number are made up of youth. Yeah. Now, when you look at the creative...
70.
About 70%?
Yeah, 70. Yeah.
So yeah. Are we looking at how to improve this sector such that it can become a career path for a lot of young persons who are still looking for employment, looking for one thing or the other? Yes, we know a handful of them are in that industry already, but much more can be done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the mission. That's the vision of Mr. President. He created this ministry specifically for the young demographic. And like I said, almost everything that we do is to really add growth, bring cultural expansion, bring economic expansion, job creation. One of the main thrusts of our ministry is actually job creation. And we have committed and are working actively with Big Win, who have put up a strategy again, whereby we're going to get at least 2 million jobs. And it's generally for the younger demographic. Everything we do is about putting up a structure, putting up a future for Nigeria. And it's really, the future of Nigeria is with the young people. The interest is with the creative industry. And let me tell you why this is I think, is the most important ministry, and I'm not being partial when I say that, is because this is a ministry that has the ability to reach the most amount of people. Many Nigerians don't have access to our oil wealth or may not have access to an Ivy League, but every Nigerian has the ability to create content on their phone, to become an influencer. So what we are trying to do is to give them that, again, enabling environment, to ensure that they are able to do that. We have come up with another initiative, CLAP, Creative Leap Acceleration Program, that will give them, it's a database, another one-stop shop for creatives, whereby they can get the network, they can also be taken to where they can get the funding, they can get the access, they can get the capacity building. There's a lot of raw talent, but we just need to sort of polish them up a little bit more, some of them. Some are just really talented. So this is what we plan to do with this ministry. With the funding, with the platform, with the infrastructure projects, with the creative city, whereby you can go and get access to your funding, to your training, to just general access, because that will be a convergence point for everything creative and international. We can have shows there international, and in the Wole Soyinka Center. Absolutely. So that is the goal. And Mr. President has told me we have to do that.
Very quickly, before we go to our colleagues in Abuja, I just want to quickly bring this in. Back in the day, or let's say, back in the day, we have our forefathers who were very creative, but then we saw the colonialists came to take most of our artifacts and all of that, and all of these are coming back to the country very soon. What are you looking to doing with these artifacts that are coming back to the country? How are we looking to make them beneficial rather to the entire nation?
Yeah. So one of the things, again, earlier on in my 8-point agenda that I said was we need to get our artifacts back, the repatriation. So we have been very dogged and very gung-ho in ensuring that we have these discussions and ensure that we bring these artifacts back. Just recently, we signed an agreement, an MOU with the Netherlands. The DG NCMM was in Netherlands to sign that MOU on our behalf, on the President and the country's behalf. And I think in April, we'll be receiving at least 100 artifacts from the Netherlands. We're having active conversations and are about to conclude with Germany, Sweden, Australia. And we're continuing that conversation. Mr. President wants these artifacts back. We have signed an agreement with the Oba of Benin to ensure that, everybody's interest is carried along. But for me, what is, again, most important is what is in the best interest of those artifacts. It's not good enough to bring artifacts if we don't have the storage space, right? So we're working, again, to ensure that we create the storage space whereby we can house these artifacts. And one of the things we're trying to do is to upgrade our museum here. Some definitely have a museum in Abuja. You can't have the giant of Africa without a museum in the capital city. So we're working on creating a museum that will be, that will have the storage facility to house these artifacts.
Documenting our history, so to speak. Well, we're bringing our colleagues in Abuja now. Tijesu and Ishomomo, you can go ahead with your questions now.
Well, Honorable Minister, I was wondering, the creative economy has faced significant copyright issues owing to widespread piracy and a lack of awareness regarding intellectual property rights. Are you considering a framework to help artists navigate contractual issues?
So, again, I think I mentioned it earlier. Thank you for your question. I mentioned it earlier that one of the things that was lacking when I came into the ministry was the fact that there was no robust IP policy. And that was one of the first things we started working on, did a really, broad stakeholder engagement, working with NESG, the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, to come up with a very, very intricately tight IP policy, because I felt that was really foundational, and it really is. So IP policy has been concluded. All these areas that are of concern when it comes to the infringement of intellectual property and extension, matters such as that, have been captured in this IP policy. We have concluded it. It will be taken, and of course we worked with the Ministry of Justice and the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Investment to ensure that it had a broad reach. When you talk about the intellectual property, it didn't only touch our ministry, it touches agriculture, health, and IP really is everything. So that will be taken to the Federal Executive Council very, very soon. And once it is passed, we will be able to deliver IP to the industry in a way that really gives them that protection that you were talking about, and to ensure that investment is really extended and boosted, and that is what IP is going to do, part of what IP is going to do.
Ashamamo?
Well, our biggest export as of now is the Nollywood and also Afrobeats. But when you have young entrants into those particular trades, they're in school, you see them drop out because the present academic framework do not accommodate such. Now, what I'm asking is, are you putting in place like a framework, like an academic framework that can also cater for the nitty-gritty of the creative economy, of the culture and tourism economy, so that whoever gets into this particular sector can also be educated while also practicing their skills?
Thank you for your question. Yes, of course. We're working with NICO, which is the one of the agencies under my ministry, to ensure that we can inculcate, and of course, we have been speaking with the Ministry of Education to see how we can inculcate some of these opportunities for education into our curriculum. I think it is very important if we're talking about the future of the country, you know, resting with the young people, and you know, this is a huge capital for us as a country, then we have to give the options for young Nigerians at a very young level to have access to learn about the industry. Of course, we can talk about the greats such as your Burna Boys, Mr. Davido. You know, you can talk about them, but you know, those are, you know, they became organically on their own, lucky because of their raw talent, great talent. But many other Nigerians may have the interest, but you know, they just don't have perhaps the network or the opportunity. So they need to go through a certain vocation. And this vocation, I think, should be given to the schools. And in addition, one of the other conversations we're having is to create institutes, art institutes, music institutes. But because of the dearth of funding in the ministry, one of the things that I have to do is prioritize certain projects. So something like an arena, something like your Obudu Ranch, something like Yankari that you can deliver, some of these low-hanging fruits, for want of a better word, I have to prioritize that. But within the framework, you know, you have your institutes, your art institutes, that will not only be of benefit to Nigerians, but also of benefit to the global community that may want to come into Nigeria and benefit from the vocation that is given there. And again, is an issue of funding. I'm actively working with global community that have interest in this Nigerian content. We're having great conversations with the Saudi Arabian government that has a lot of interest in our cultural space and how we can collaborate. Very soon, I'll be able to make an announcement, a very great announcement. We're working with the Abu Dhabi government that also has a lot of interest in engaging us in the creative economy space, creative industry space. I'll be making that announcement very soon. We're working with the French government. That announcement is going to come soon. And we're working with India and Brazil that have a huge population of Yoruba who we want to bring home. When we talk about the Orisha, that we should monetize things like this, right? And we're working, like I said, with one of our agencies to ensure that we create that, again, enabling environment for them to be able to come home. And I think this calendar that we're going to announce is going to help to key into that. And we're going to do the Orisha, we're going to do everything.
Time is not our friend. There's so much to be said.
There's so much.
Thank you, Ashamama and TJSU, for your contribution to this conversation. And we must thank you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Veronica.
Hannatu Musawa, the Minister for Arts, Culture and Creative Economy, for your time.
Tourism. Arts, culture, tourism.
Tourism.
Yeah.
I missed that part. For your time on the program. But I would like to quickly know who's your favorite musician.
Oh my goodness. Now that is not fair. Okay, it's Burna, it's Wiz, it's Thames, it's David, it's all of them. I mean, they have made me, but can I tell you truly my favorite musician?
Right.
Is Fela. I mean, come on. Is Fela.
Amazing.
Are you serious?
Yeah, of course.
You dance to his music?
I dance to it. I really do. Is Fela.
We can put you on the spot because we
No
have the space.
problem, no problem.
Unfortunately, Zion wouldn't allow us
Thank
to
you.
do that. Thank you so much for your time on the program once again.
Thank you so much.
Honorable Minister.